Yesteryear is not Ballerina Farm semi-RPF. I mean, I didn't find algebra in the Bible, so we're not learning it. Mommy, the walls are closing in. But my tummy hurt reading this. Like, I was so mad. Oh, okay, sure. What you're experiencing is joy. Got it. Like, honestly, I knew something was up, but I didn't guess it would be that. So I just got done reading Yesteryear by Caro Burke, and wow, it was incredible. So we are gonna talk about it. This came out April 2026. The concept is a tradwife influencer wakes up trapped in pioneer times, and now she has to live the tradwife life for real. Where does she come from? Where does she go? Where does she come from, Cotton Eye Joe? It is phenomenal. I loved it. I would describe it as Gone Girlian. And so today we're going to talk about it. I'm going to recap the whole thing beat by beat with spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled, just pause the video, read the entire book, and come back. Got it? Good. Let's get into it. All right, so part 1, the past, is ironically set in present day. Our protagonist is Natalie Heller Mills, and it is the last day of her normal life. She's not like you and me. She has never struggled in motherhood, in marriage, in business, or in faith. And we just love a relatable protag here, folks. This is who Natalie wants you to believe she is. She's a Christian tradwife influencer with 5 million followers on Instagram and 1 million YouTube subscribers. She lives on a farm called Yesteryear Ranch in bumfuck Idaho, hence the title. Her husband, Caleb, is her greatest project. He's the youngest son of a John McCain meets Mitt Romney meets Ronald Reagan in his prime type senator, currently on his 3rd presidential bid. 3rd time's the charm. He's gonna win. Her feelings towards Caleb can best be described as simmering contempt. He is not the capable, godly head of the household you might imagine for a tradwife. He is, quote, the runt of the litter in an American dynasty. When they pray together, she could, quote, practically see his insipid prayers float past her in little Comic Sans thought bubbles. May a love like this never find me. And may love like this never find you either. Xtina gang, we're all loved here. Her 5 children are eldest daughter Clementine, 12, sons Stetson and Samuel, 9 and 8, toddler daughters Jessa and Junebug, and her unborn 6th child, with whom she is 6 months pregnant. She's pretty obviously inspired by Hannah Nealman, better known as Ballerina Farm, subject of a 2024 profile in the Times that was all over everywhere. I'll put a link to it in the description if you want to read it. She's a Juilliard-trained ballerina who married an heir to the billion-dollar JetBlue fortune. They document their lives raising their 8 children on a farm in rural Utah, homeschooling the kids and raising cows and drinking raw milk, all of the sexy parts of pioneer life and none of the nasty crap. Yesteryear is not Ballerina Farm semi-RPF. Natalie is not a fictionalization of Ballerina Farm, but there are parallels. Hannah is Mormon, Natalie's some flavor of evangelical Christian. Hannah graduated from Juilliard while Natalie left Harvard 2 years early. That's right, Natalie went to Harvard just like the Unabomber. Anyway, her staff includes Nanny Louise and Nanny Amy, who take care of the kids, and producer Shannon, who takes care of the content. They also have ranch hands to do the actual ranch work. Shannon is 21 and there's some underlying tension between her and Natalie. Natalie says she'd misbehaved, whatever that means. Natalie has very little nice to think about anyone, but besides that, she seems like an okay boss. Shannon dropped her phone in a puddle and Natalie had a new one rushed to the house. Natalie's nemesis are her haters, the nasty commenters, the snarkers. She calls them the angry women, and she imagines them as these coastal elite, wine-drunk, progressive career women who live in perpetual jealousy of her life. They don't just live rent-free in her head, she has built them a damn penthouse. And she is incapable of rising above the naysayers. We see her angry a lot in this chapter, internally. Her rage boils when Clementine asks her what a tradwife is, because how does she know the word tradwife? Or she runs into a former high school classmate, Vanessa, at Target, and she fantasizes about how jealous she must be of her. Natalie's surface level nice to her, and she tries to convince us that she pities this woman. But after their interaction, she thinks, Vanessa, that bitch, was undoubtedly going to run home to post about me in one of those stupid, snarky online forums. Bet you didn't think someone like Natalie would shop at Target, and then I would have to suffer a whole week of online commentary. And Shannon, the nerve, the absolute unbelievable nerve of that spoiled, uneducated, morally bankrupt little son of a... Breathe, Natalie. Just breathe. Yes, that would be nice. I could share the moment myself and take the wind right out of Vanessa's stupid little sails. I picked up the phone and pressed record right as Clementine was getting into the passenger seat. Girls, I said, smiling into the lit up screen, what did you get at our very special trip to Target today? Clementine is intelligent and she's eerily similar to Natalie, both in appearance and kind of vibe. She tells Natalie to stop filming her. She's 12 years old and she has all the requisite feelings that come with it. But because the camera was on, Natalie is like, oh, all you had to do was say. Inside, she's seething. Honestly, that might be a theme of this book. Assume when anything happens, inside she's seething. When she gets back to the farm, she learns that producer Shannon has quit and left. Her resignation email says, for what it's worth, I don't think you're a bad person. I think you're just confused, which fills Natalie with a cold rage. She describes it as a bold thing to say to the wife of the man you're fucking. Ooh. Caleb's going to run for office. Is he qualified? Doesn't matter. Shannon's resignation and Caleb's run are part of a mysterious bigger plan, which might have something to do with vague allegations of assault at the ranch. And that's the first chapter. And it is like, wow, what a portrait of Natalie's life and mindset. I was hooked immediately. Natalie is so unlikable, and she reminded me so much of Amy Dunn with like her rage and her control and her intelligence. And she's not a reliable narrator too, as we'll find out. But I'll save my thoughts for the end. For now, on to part 2. It's called The Present, and it's told in split timelines. I usually hate a split timeline. I didn't hate this. One leads up to the events in part 1, and the other starts in olden times. I'm gonna start in the olden times. Natalie wakes up sometime after part 1. She's cold, it's dark, and her lovely Pottery Barn bedding is now a shitty little quilt. Sorry, that's not nice. Quilts are very hard to make. I'm sure it's a lovely quilt, but it's no match for an Idaho winter. Her phone is gone, and she's in an older, shittier version of her farm in the year 1855. She has 4 children, not 5, and they're dressed like pioneers. They could pass as her children, but in her heart of hearts, she knows that's not her kids. She doesn't recognize them at all. Her not kids are teenager Mary, the oldest, which was also the name she had picked out for her unborn child, who no longer seems to exist. Like the bump and the baby are gone. Surprise! Runaway fetus! And there's another daughter, Maeve, who's about like 4 or 5, and 13-year-old Abel and 8-year-old Noah. But who cares about the boys? They barely matter. Caleb's there too, but he looks like weirdly older, probably from chronic dehydration and a lack of SPF. Natalie calls him Old Caleb, so we'll call him that too. She freaks out and runs away from the house, but she trips. Old Caleb tells her to get up and she tells him to go fuck himself. And then he slaps her hard across the face. And like, I didn't want her to get hit, but like, she wanted to be a tradwife. Like, this was how wives were treated in trad times. Seek semper tradwife. Speaking of, do you like my little tradwife fit? Love the themed look. She wakes up back in bed and little Maeve is there to see her. Upon seeing her, Natalie thinks, my heart squeezes in a sort of heartsick revulsion, the kind I felt in the early days of postpartum with Clementine. That innate instinct to love a child, especially one who looks like you, coupled with the overwhelming desire to kill the needful thing, to bash its head in and run. At this point, like, I really felt for her. I wanted to believe that she loved her children despite what sounded like postpartum depression to me. The PPD reading gave me a frankly unwarranted amount of sympathy for Natalie for the rest of the book. Like, I'll be real, I was a hashtag Natalie, not defender, but like sympathizer. You know what? Fine. I was a Natalie defender. I'll say it. I'm not afraid to say it. To whom? Me. Natalie runs away again, this time in the pitch black night, but she steps on a steel trap and it fucks her ankle right up. Caleb brings her back to the house and Mary, the eldest, sews her back up with twine and all the skill of a teen girl / amateur surgeon. This scene is not particularly graphic, but there's like a few allusions to it that honestly made me want to barf. I'm a squeamish little baby. Natalie's like, I want to go home, and Mary's like, you are home. This is home. You are mommy. Mommy is you. Get your shit together. And she's talking to Natalie like she's a disobedient child. She may as well be the mom of the family, making Mary a pretty fitting name for her. A lot of the second part feels like a culture shock plus like humiliation ritual for Natalie. Like she wasn't prepared for how shitty pioneer times would be. Like dinner is hot garbage. The house is cold. We've moved past outhouses for a reason. And like this whole time she's dressed like a shitty off-brand Kirsten American Girl doll. I shouldn't say that either. Like Kirsten was cute. I had Kirsten. Mary tucks Natalie into bed, and Maeve confirms that they're at Yesteryear, which is, or was, the name of Natalie's ranch. Weird. Weird. Presumably she really has been sent back in time to Yesteryear Ranch in 1855. Natalie goes outside and she sees what she is like pretty sure is like a piece of a clip for a lapel microphone. And then she starts to think that maybe she's in some kind of like shitty reality TV show. Like imagine like Truman Show meets Little House on the Prairie meets Wife Swap meets Survivor. Like you'd watch that, right? I'd watch it. And after another escape attempt where Natalie attempts to run off with Noah, old Caleb puts her on lockdown. Natalie tells Mary that she's not her family family, and that her home is here but not here, which sounds insane, right? Mary seems to have heard this before. Mary gives her some kind of sleepy tonic, and when she wakes up, she's not so afraid and miserable. She's actually kind of happy. And she does all of her crappy little farm tasks with her girls, and she happily thinks that they're in hell. I guess because that's where poor people go. But either way, it seems like she's happily accepted her place in yesteryear. Or settled for it, I guess. I think this is a good place to stop for now. Let's check back in on the present-ish. So, like I said, split timeline. Part 2 switches between 1855 and the story of Natalie's life, her relationship with Caleb, and how Natalie the influencer came to be. I liked this way more than the 1855 timeline. So Natalie's dad left when she was 10, and her parents never officially divorced. Her mom moved her and her sister to southwestern Idaho and told them to say that their dad was no longer with them, which was technically true. It wasn't lying, because lying's a sin. The early life section of Natalie's Wikipedia page is woefully blank. She's a mystery flavor of traditional evangelical Christian. Like, she didn't cut her hair, and she would wear like prairie dresses, which I don't really think are the same as like the plain clothes that like the Amish or the Mennonites wear. I think it's just a look. And she didn't really have friends. Her relationship with religion is kind of vague, apart from having like a traditional view of what a woman should be. She doesn't seem to have any like real relationship with God. Like, she praise. I don't know, like if you've ever heard of people talk about having a relationship with God, it doesn't feel like that. It honestly just sounds like somebody she thinks to sometimes. Christianity honestly seems more like a set of rules that she's supposed to follow. She graduated top 3 of her class and got a full ride to Harvard. The choice doesn't match the vibe, but whatever. She thought Boston would be full of like smart, efficient, terse people, just like her. Maybe she'll belong there. But she is woefully disappointed. On the first day of school, her roommate, Rena Magliotti, hosts a pre-game in their room with alcohol. Natalie hates the whole thing. Later, Rena brings home a boy, and they have consensual sex in their shared room while they think Natalie's asleep. And that would be awful in normal circumstances, but Natalie describes it as if they're assaulting her. And they're not. Like, I read it multiple times just to confirm. Natalie has a pretty complicated relationship with sex, which we absolutely will get to. Natalie doesn't fit in like she hoped. Her female classmates especially bother her because they have a pretty dim view of motherhood, men, and childbearing. Even though married Natalie's not gonna like those things either. Rena tells her friends that the guy she hooked up with was some kind of like rapey predator, and at first Natalie holds her tongue, but then they fight in front of all of Rena's friends, and Natalie tells them that the boy Rena slept with never assaulted her, and then Rena hits her, so Natalie gets moved to her own room. After that, Natalie meets senior Caleb Mills at a church group. On their first date, she tells him that she wants a farm with chickens in Idaho, and she wants to study theology part-time after the kids are grown. Where did this idea come from? Straight from her ass. But she pitches this idea because it's kind of what she thinks she's supposed to want. She probably doesn't even know what she really wants. And he doesn't know what he really wants because he's just kind of like, oh, cool, same. And that's an answer you get to have when you're young, handsome, and Scrooge McDuck rich, which he is. And he likes Natalie. They speedrun their engagement and get married the summer after her freshman year. They saved their first time for their wedding night, but unfortunately it's a lackluster display of rope pushing. Fast forward to spring semester of Natalie's sophomore year. She's 6 months pregnant. She runs into Rena, who's got a summer internship at Mackenzie, and Natalie thinks about how miserable her life is going to be. In Natalie's mind, there is a right path and a wrong path, and Rena has chosen the wrong path. And for choosing the wrong path, the rest of Rena's life will be hell. Even though there is no reason this has to be Rena's life, she is at Harvard. Rena represents what Natalie's life could have been, and she'll continue to compare her life to Rena's throughout the book, nearly always negatively. The summer after her sophomore year, Natalie gives birth to Clementine. They don't immediately click. She describes her as a wax doll with a sound machine buried inside and malevolent. And there's these scenes where Natalie's recovering in the hospital room, and honestly, they break my heart because Natalie's mom absolutely fails her. Like, Natalie says, "The baby doesn't look like me, Mama. Do you honestly think she looks like me? And the way she watches me." I would never say it out loud, the word I wanted to use to describe the feeling I got around my baby. Evil. It wasn't a term we bandied around in my family. But I felt it clearly when I was with her, a deep, dark sensation, like all the joy had been sucked from the world. And instead of being like, that sounds like a thought you should share with the doctor, she's like, have you tried running about it? Horrible idea. Natalie has a dinner plate-sized wound in her uterus, taint stitches, and is wearing the biggest maxi pad you've ever seen in your life. But she goes on the damn jog, which she obviously cannot do, and then she starts bleeding. And her criminally stupid mom's response is like, you can do it because you have to. Natalie never gets a diagnosis, spoiler, but the thing she feels about her newborn seems to point to postpartum psychosis. Like, it's not always hallucinations or yellow wallpaper type shit. Like, sometimes it's just delusions, like thinking your baby is a demon. And if it's left untreated, it can turn into schizophrenia later. It's a serious thing, but it's very treatable. But you have to want to treat it, and you have to know to treat it. Anyway, Natalie recovers at her mom's house. She's miserable. She's hopeless. Caleb's push present for her is new running shoes, a flip phone, and a baby carrier. You know, to jog with the baby who can't even hold its head up yet. And then she realizes that she and Caleb have never had a substantial conversation about anything. This is probably where her contempt of Caleb begins. She goes on walks. She sees women cooking dinner, children playing, husbands coming home from work. These must be happy families because they're doing what happy families do. The mom does the mom thing, the dad goes to work, and everyone's happy. And if she does this, she'll be happy too. This will fix her. This book would be so different if somebody just dropped a little bit of Zoloft into her water. She goes back home and decides to fake it till she makes it with the whole loving her child thing. And she decides that Caleb will get a job, which he does not want to do, because daddy can just pay for his life. But the thought of Caleb simply vibing disgusts Natalie. That is not what men do in happy families. That is not the happy man job. He doesn't get why he can't just be a stay-at-home dad with her, and she thinks, because you aren't even remotely helpful with the baby. You can't clip her nails or apply her diaper cream or give her a bottle in the dark without causing her to wake up. And because I don't need you to be a nanny. I need you to be the things I cannot do and be the things I cannot be. I need you to get a job, dear husband. I need you to be a man. But she says nothing. She tattles to Caleb's mom, and then they're off to his parents' beautiful Napa Valley estate. And now his parents get promoted to actual characters. So Doug is Caleb's dad. He's like the all-American senator. I've mentioned him. Amelia is Caleb's mom, and she's this kind of like manic Stepford wife. Caleb's parents are not about to whip him into shape. The people who made him that way are going to fix him? Get real. They raised him on whole milk and low expectations. This is the natural conclusion of that. Later, Doug and Amelia pulled Natalie aside and gently explained that Caleb, sweet Caleb, is a fail son with a severe case of ambition deficit disorder. Doug suggests that Caleb could manage the vineyard down the road, aka be a janitor, and that will not do. Caleb wishes there was a job for playing with babies all day. And there is. It's called daycare. And Natalie realizes that Caleb, who just wants to be taken care of and play with babies, should have been born a woman, and she should have been born a man. She's probably right. There are so many points where Natalie could challenge her beliefs about what people should do and what should make her happy. Like, she would thrive in a traditionally male role. Like, she would thrive in a career. And she'll just never consider it. Like, you could make it a drinking game, but you shouldn't, because it would kill you. Instead, Amelia pressures her to put on appearances, to shower, to style her hair, and do her makeup. And Amelia leaves a little pill on her countertop. What is it? Dunno. Natalie doesn't take it. But Amelia loves it. She calls it Mother's Little Helper, which I believe is the street name for Valium. Natalie calls her mom to ask how she did it. Her mom would just pretend that she was performing all her little chores for an imaginary audience. Yeah, like just feed the paranoia, feed the delusions. Cool, cool, cool. Natalie's sickened that all these women are just pretending to enjoy motherhood. And again, she could decide that this is all bullshit, but she doesn't. She tries it anyway, and she imagines Rena's sad little life at Harvard. And then she is on. This is the Natalie that we saw in part 1. This was her little performance, refined over years and years and years. Caleb decides to become a kindergarten teacher, and that will not do. Do you know what a kindergarten teacher's wife is called? A lesbian. That's basically how Natalie feels. She doesn't say it. Instead, she just makes something up about how school is woke or whatever. She says that Caleb should just pretend to like a grown-up job until he actually does. And he's like, but I wouldn't like that. To which Natalie thinks, what had I been thinking? The strategy worked only if opting out was not an option. But for Caleb, it was always an option. In every single waking second of his life, he had the opportunity to say simply, I don't want to do that. Imagine if I said that. Imagine if Clementine started crying and I rolled over in bed and said, I don't want to do that. Breastfeeding, I don't want to do that. Scrubbing Caleb's little flecks of calcified shit from the toilet bowl in the guest bathroom, even though there were housekeepers here, because my mother had always taught me that what your family does in the bathroom is no one else's business but your own. Nope, don't want to do that. And she actually doesn't have to do any of that. Like, Caleb could take care of the baby. Like, she doesn't have to breastfeed. Like, she could use formula or pump. Like, somebody else is there to clean the toilet. Like, she would rather martyr herself than consider that this isn't working for her. She's like, what did you want to be when you were younger? And he's like, easy, actor or cowboy. Incredible answer. She has 2 children already. And this is what starts the Yesteryear ranch plan. She puts in an offer for a cattle ranch for sale about 20 miles away from her mom's house. And then she Shark Tanks Doug. He'll give her $5 million for the ranch, and in exchange, Natalie thinks he's going to ask for sex, and she's kind of like weirdly into it. And he does. Kind of, just not with him. Doug expects Natalie to have more kids with Caleb. She accepts. So she has the bid, she has the money. Caleb's in, but he says no cattle on his cattle farm. And that's where I'm going to leave us for now. Let's check back in on the 1855 timeline. Where we left off, Natalie was powering through her misery to thrive in yesteryear. It's maybe 2 months later and pioneer time still sucks. Her only hope is that at any minute the TV crew will reveal themselves. Old Caleb's been keeping his distance since the hit. He says he doesn't like hitting her, which isn't an apology, but since she's doing better, tonight they will share a bed. She can't really say no. She's a hostage, she realizes, just like all the pioneer women were. And she's like, who are you? What do you want from me? And he says that she's here because she wants to be. If she tries to leave again, he won't be the one who stops her. Whatever that means. That night, they have sex. I mean, it's marital rape. Old Caleb actually gets hard, which Caleb never did. And for the only time in the entire book, she actually enjoys it. I didn't really get this at first, but I think for her, sex is like inextricably linked to power. And at this point, old Caleb has the most power over her that anybody's ever had. After, she decides that she absolutely, under no circumstances, should get pregnant here. A few days later, Mary looks for saffron in the woods. So true story, literally the day after I read this, I stumbled upon this like Instagram reel of this woman who's like talking about how cool it is to be bipolar and unmedicated. So obviously I read the comments and somebody was like, oh, like take saffron, like that fixed my depression, which wow, cool. Don't do that. I also will not be explaining my algorithm at this time, but it did make me wonder, like, was the saffron to fix Natalie's scrambly brain? Saffron's from the Middle East, not Idaho. Like, is this an error? Is this a clue? When Mary comes back, she's upset because she saw a mink caught in a trap. But this is the same girl who turned her leg into Sally Nightmare Before Christmas. She has nerves of steel. That can't be it. And then Mary's in a mood for the rest of the week. Like, she asks Natalie if anybody's ever lied to her. And Natalie's like, ah, yes, this is God talking to me through Mary. Your mother lies to you, and then you lie to your children, and then your children lie to their children. And then you are an old woman looking back at your own life, lying to yourself. A lifetime of drowning, and then you are dead. Why is it inevitable that people must lie? It's technically the Christian thing to do to say that people should never lie, but that in itself feels like a lie. For example, if my mother hadn't lied to me about motherhood, I might never have had children. And wouldn't that have been a greater sin than the sin she made in lying to me? So I kept a pretty hefty reserve of empathy for Natalie throughout the book, probably more than the average reader, and definitely more than she deserves. And I do feel for her here, because Natalie probably would be happier if she never had kids. But instead, it's like she's a victim, and she was lied to, but she must keep the lie going, or else... what? Because if she admits that motherhood isn't for her, like, what does it mean? Like, that she's defective? Like, that she's stupid? And to be clear, like, I don't think she was lied to. Women do find themselves again after having kids. Many women enjoy motherhood. Like, some women regret it, sure, but her experience is not universal by any means. But it's like she never stopped to think that maybe it wasn't, and that maybe it could be different. Like, this is me finding myself after having a kid. But anyway, Natalie's like... people lie for lots of reasons. She says she has a lot to confess about Shannon and Caleb and Doug and Clementine. And Mary's like, who's Clementine? And Natalie's like, no one, shut up. And we learn that when Natalie was a child, she had a little crush on God. And that feeling is back. Or it's mania. Mostly she's settling into her 1855 life. She even enjoys it sometimes until she remembers her real children, and then she gets sad again. The depression, perhaps? Is there a name for this cycle? Menstrual, am I right? Women! Speaking of, she wakes up one morning and realizes that she hasn't gotten her period in 2 months. I think that's a good stopping point. Let's put a pause on 1855 for now and travel back to our timeline. Natalie joins Instagram. There's something kind of funny about Natalie getting on the gram at all, since like nobody really wants to see her life. So obviously her posts go nowhere. Caleb has been poisoning his brain online. Like, he's worried about chemtrails and he wants to get dark sky protections. He's also been drawn into the manosphere, and yes, he calls it the manosphere. At this point, it should probably be about 2015. I don't think think the boys were calling it the manosphere then, but what do I know? He's also on the farming forums. What a range. So farming is actually not as easy as Stardew Valley might have you believe. Like, their cow gets mastitis and dies. And Natalie's like, what's mastitis? And I did have to pause. Like, Natalie, girl, you breastfed. People get mastitis. What do you mean you don't know what mastitis is? That's like a Victorian asking, oi, what's consumption? Is that the worst little Cockney accent you've ever heard? This is the point I frantically Googled if Caro Claire Burke had kids. Like, is it weird that this stuff throws me for a loop? This is not information hidden in the secret tomes. Like, your doctor tells you this. Natalie and Caleb's flaccid, passionless intercourse hasn't been bearing fruit, so she knocks herself up with the old turkey baster method. And that's going to be her go-to from now on. About a year later, the house is being renovated slowly but surely. Their $5 million cash advance has pretty much run out, which is a secret. Natalie's mom, sister Abigail, and Abigail's kids come to visit. Abigail is reaching critical levels of unhappy. She smokes, she drinks, and she's doing it all while pregnant, and she's leaving her husband, which Natalie doesn't support even though he sucks and he's abusive. One, Abigail can't afford it, and two, she doesn't think that Abigail will be better off without him. The world isn't kind to women who abandon their posts. And of course, Natalie delivers this like the unhinged sociopathic narcissist that she is. Natalie's projecting because she's trapped. She signed an ironclad prenup, and one of Doug's stipulations for buying the ranch was that it would be in Caleb's name only. Her life is in Caleb's incompetent little hands. So maybe Natalie sees the tradwife life not working for Abigail, feels that it isn't working for her, and it's activated some sort of like deep-seated crabs in a bucket mentality. And Doug's gearing up for a presidential run, so he pulls back on their funds. So Natalie pours herself into the Instagram account. She's been keeping tabs on Rena too. She sees a video of Rena and thinks about how fake her positivity is, how desperate she is, how she's pretending she's happy with her life, how embarrassing it is that she's practically begging for attention and money. Like, does that remind you of anyone? She gets like so close to acknowledging how similar she and Rena are here, and then she's like, I will not be exploring that any further. And she doesn't have to, because then her account blows up. Sometimes the best things happen to the worst people. So Caleb's hobby, besides playing farm, is talking to his boys on the Manosphere forums. He calls Natalie over to Daddy's little goon cave in the barn, where some guy is like live streaming and praising her for being a, quote, wholesome traditional Aryan wife to his tens of millions of followers. Caleb shared her account on his little forums, and I guess this guy was a member. And suddenly Natalie's account gets followers by the thousandful. She gets 300,000 followers in 24 hours. That seemed kind of implausible to me, mostly because I can't really imagine somebody using Aryan like positively and unironically having enough followers to make that kind of motion. Like, there'd be more subtlety there, right? And it bugged me enough to do some research. I assumed that maybe he was supposed to be an Alex Jones type, so I used him as my metric. I found a claim that he had a daily audience of 5 million listeners in 2016, which seems high, but whatever. But we'll take it at face value, and if we do, that's 6% of his daily audience choosing to follow her. And so it's like 6%. Is that a good benchmark? Is that high? Is that low? Whatever. So I looked at something that was maybe comparable, which was like view to subscriber conversion rates for YouTube. There was a pretty wide range, but 2% seemed to be standard. And remember, that's people moving their mouse an inch to click subscribe on the page they're already on. Not for them to like get out their phone, open up the gram, find an account, spell it right, and then hit follow. And that's not even getting into the likely minuscule overlap of info warriors and genuine tradwife enjoyers. So in conclusion, Your Honor, if that is your real name, the details of this very minor plot point did not check out to me in particular. Thank you. I rest my case, but I do not cede my time. Speaking of subscribing, how about subscribe to me? Anyway, 3 months later, Natalie's at 3 million followers. She's feeling confident, in charge. Like, Doug wants her to talk about his politics, and she won't. It doesn't fit her brand, which is farm mom. At this point, we're at baby 4, and Natalie still doesn't like being a mom. I don't know how much more faking it'll take to make it. I asked earlier what it meant to Natalie if she didn't enjoy being a mother, and I think the answer is that it means she's defective. And she's still not a good mom. While Caleb's job has been play cowboy and watch live stream, he's also taken up the role of the aloof Christian patriarch that Natalie cast for him. He doesn't really play with and love on the kids like he used to, so the kids basically have no good parents. After she forgets to feed the kids one too many times, they decide to hire a nanny. Nanny Louise. Nanny Louise would prefer to go by Louise, but Natalie strong-arms her into taking on a more Mary Poppins-ass name. She raises an eyebrow at the shitty biblical curriculum that Natalie teaches the kids with. And by shitty biblical curriculum, I don't mean like Christian education, but I'm being judgy about it. I mean, I didn't find algebra in the Bible, so we're not learning it. Harvard-educated Natalie could not give less of a fuck because she is rolling in cash. Enough to hire Nanny Amy too, and a producer. She interviews Shannon, a 19-year-old liberal-coded woman. She says that Natalie is actually a feminist icon because she's rejected both the career grind and the stay-at-home mom life. Natalie never even considered that, but she loves the idea, so she hires Shannon. At this point, it could and should dawn on Natalie that she could actually live that way on purpose, full-time, for real, but that would require her making a good choice, and she's allergic to those. Shannon moves onto the ranch, and she immediately notices all the things that don't make it onto the grid, like the nannies and the pesticides. She doesn't run, but she does document it. Natalie notices, but she doesn't fire her because Shannon's just too good at Instagram. One day they pull Clementine out of homeschool for some videos, which is fine. Natalie insists that they are light years ahead of their public school peers because she just says things. The shoot goes well. Shannon even manages to get Clementine to smile and laugh, which Natalie can never do. And then Clementine and Shannon chat. Shannon wants to travel and see the Pacific Ocean before she even considers kids. Clementine does not know what an ocean is. And this is the part where my empathy for Natalie nearly ran dry. I know, it should have left a long time ago. At this point, Clementine is 10. Like, she's not real, obviously, but it breaks my heart to imagine setting a kid up for such a small life. Like, it's one thing to expect daughters to just be wives and moms, but still, like, educate them. It's an entirely different thing to make it so that that is the only route available to them. I'm not even anti-homeschooling, like plenty of people are homeschooled competently, but educational neglect is neglect, and like, I honestly think it should be illegal. I feel like there should be some accountability so that kids actually learn anything. And spoiler, it just gets worse. So I'm just so glad that this is fiction, so I can just put it in like a little pretend bubble where it can't piss me off too bad. A year or so later, Doug announces his third political run at this kind of like state fair meets Trump rally. That's not fair to the state fair. I love the fair. Caleb believes all sorts of wackadoo shit, like that the rats in New York City are making people crazy and that civil war is on the horizon. To most people, that would be insane, but to Doug, it's a valid political platform. He's especially running with the whole Civil War thing, presumably on the side of Civil War. These days, Doug and Amelia are their own kind of portrait of Dorian Gray. Doug has clearly gotten a facelift and veneers, and he's all in on whatever people tell him it's the most advantageous to say. Amelia's kind of a depressed skeleton. Natalie thinks he's going to have to wear this persona for at least the next year, or more if he wins, and she might be the only person who really knows what that's like. We don't see the speech, but we see the aftermath. Shannon is disturbed, and she is convinced that Doug is going to win. It's a performance, Shannon. It's political theater, not real. How is a political election not real? I don't mean that. I just mean, I gestured at the crowd around us. All of this, the showmanship, the bravado. Do you honestly think there are no consequences to performance? No? And apparently Doug peppered Natalie's Instagram captions into his speech. It just feels raw. The whole vibe, I mean, not stealing the captions. Nobody cares about that. And half Harvard-educated Natalie suddenly realizes that Shannon could delete everything and ruin her. And that fear kind of holds her hostage. She didn't fire Shannon before, but now she can't. She becomes hyper-aware of all things Shannon. Shannon bonds with the nannies and Clementine, and about 2 months before the start of the book, she realizes that Shannon and Caleb have something. And she wonders why Shannon is, quote, working so hard to seduce everyone on the ranch but her. A few days before part 1, Caleb sits her down and tells her that he not only slept with Shannon, but he's in love with her. He likes that Shannon actually pushes him on things, like the rat thing. Did you know the rat thing wasn't true? Caleb says that he and Natalie were never meant to be together. She does not agree. She doesn't even acknowledge what he said. She's so angry that she can't sleep, and then she just sits on the porch and stews. I made an espresso and walked out to the front porch and sat on a rocking chair while the dark sky slowly lightened. The espresso went cold while I sat there, rocking away, a wool blanket draped around my shoulders, wondering where my family might have ended up, if not here on this ranch. Those options weren't satisfying, though, not even for a daydream. And so I moved farther back and wondered where I might have ended up, if not with Caleb. A series of silent films played out in front of me. I watched them with vague disappointment. If I didn't marry Caleb, I would have married someone else. She doesn't think that she would have married someone better for her. She doesn't imagine finishing at Harvard, making something of herself, and building a career. That she would have been a wife is a foregone conclusion. Then, once stewing time is done, she goes to Shannon's room. Shannon's in the middle of getting dressed, and she throws on some pants. Shannon says that she just felt so helpless after the rally, and she wanted to see if she could debunk some of Caleb's dumbass ideas. Turns out none of those beliefs survived first contact. And then she had a fling with him. She didn't think Natalie would care. She says that Natalie's not really present as a wife or a mother, and one day the kids will hate her for it. I heard myself say, like some terrible impersonation of a woman I didn't know, was it fun, Shannon? Was it fun getting fucked by a man who can't even maintain an erection? She was supposed to look horrified or maybe ashamed. Instead, she looked concerned. Oh God, Natalie, is he not hard when he has sex with you? That's it. Natalie imagines that a good Christian husband would slap and strangle her, and that's exactly what she does. She notes that Shannon's underwear is fully exposed and her jeans are halfway down her thighs from the movement. The pants do matter. You gotta know where the pants are here, okay? I don't have some weird jeans fetish, and I wouldn't tell you if I did. And then Natalie backs off and turns her act back on. Basically tells her take a half day and then meet her downstairs. This is the assault you may remember being mentioned in passing in part 1. She calls up Doug. Years ago, he told her that Caleb just might be dumb enough to be good at politics. She says it's time. That's her plan to get Caleb away. She tells Doug she sort of hit Shannon and physically threatened her, which, sure. And Doug says they'll need a PR firm, and Natalie disagrees. She thinks, who the fuck are you to say I'm not likable enough? You horrible man, imbecile, asshole. If it weren't for me, your son would be dead in a ditch somewhere. Which, oopsie daisy, came out of her mouth instead of staying in her silly willy lady brain. But now she's worried that she won't be able to keep her inside thoughts inside her head. Doug's still on her team though. And then Natalie wakes up on the day we read in part 1. We speed run the picture perfect story she told for us in part 1, but now we have the full context and way more bitterness and seething. And Natalie feels like there is something she's missing. Is it the thing that sends her to 1855? I don't know, but for now we're caught up to where we were at the start of part 1, so let's check back on the past. Some men show up with old Caleb. They're younger than he is, and Natalie is convinced that she knows them from somewhere. Mary watches the men work on the fence, and Natalie realizes that Mary has a little crush. And she realizes that one day Mary will get married and leave. How Natalie imagines this will happen, I have no idea. These might be the only men in a 100-mile radius, and for all we know, they're 2 totally straight dudes living together and sharing a bed. The men stay for dinner. One of them says they live nearby, and Natalie asks what's past that. He says the rest of the world, which is basically true anywhere. Ask better questions, Natalie. And finally, she's like, I'm being held here against my will. Old Caleb isn't my real husband. These kids are not my real kids. I have been kidnapped. And they all sort of act like she said nothing and changed the subject. Sometime later, a fox or something gets into the coop and wreaks havoc. Sweet Maeve got all the blood and bits on her when she went in to comfort the surviving chicken. Not super good for you. And Maeve gets sick. Mary asks if Natalie's feeling sick too, and she's like, I'm fine. But winter is weeks away, and she needs to leave before she's visibly pregnant. Maeve gets sicker and she has a really high fever. A quick Google tells me it's maybe salmonella or possibly typhus. Old Caleb doesn't really want to do anything about it, but Mary and Natalie know that Maeve needs help. And if anyone's leaving this ranch through death or the front door, it's gonna be Natalie. She asks Mary where she can find a doctor, and Mary finally trusts her enough to tell her. She sends Natalie out with a little pack of supplies, and then she's off. See you dumb bitches later. She'll try to find the doctor, but she's not coming back. There aren't any traps to worry about, by the way. They only put them out when Natalie was having a freak out that one time. She could have left at any time. Anyway, here's what Natalie thinks before she leaves. It speaks for itself. And also, I just want you to have it and remember it, okay? Look at how soft I've become. A pile of jelly. I think it's because I'm leaving and because I will never see her face again that I'm able to feel so much love for her. Silly, stupid girl, I think fondly. You trapped me here so easily. You clever child. You unbelievable bitch. There it is, on the tip of my tongue. An instinct to say, I love you. It's true. I love her. I love her very much, this strange young woman. Maeve, too. And the boys. I've never said that to any of them. I consider saying it now. Instead, I say, tell me where to go. There's a whole system of trails Natalie will take to the neighbor's house. Mary says it'll take Natalie days to get there. Mary's only been once, she thinks, a long time ago. It was a lot like this house, just nicer. And that's probably why they don't visit. There's probably some kind of pioneer keeping up with the Jones thing going on. Let's leave Natalie to wander around the woods right now. Back to the present. We're caught up with part 1, and Natalie feels like something's off. It hits her. Shannon's been collecting evidence this whole time. Not just the once. Not just when she got here. And her phone didn't break. She gave it to Clementine. Early in the morning, Natalie confronts Clementine. Clementine is basically a little Natalie, physically and intellectually, and in this moment it freaks Natalie out. Clementine won't even admit that she has a phone. Meanwhile, Shannon's got a full primetime interview scheduled. The journalists are descending on Natalie. Doug's expensive legal team is on the case, but they're fucked. Natalie's family has been drifting away from her for a while now. Abigail's divorced, in nursing school, and dating one of those ultra-liberal pastors who thinks divorce is okay sometimes, things, and gays shouldn't be stoned. She calls her mom and she's like, "Mommy, everyone's lying to me. The walls are closing in." But they end up fighting because it turns out that Natalie's dad left because Natalie's mom cheated on him. They've been divorced the whole time and it's fine. God forgave her. He does that sometimes. And Natalie's like, "You're being brainwashed by liberals and lady therapists. You're too nice." And her mom is like, "Being nice is the whole point. Why can't you just be kind?" I don't actually know what Natalie's deal is, why she's so unkind this whole time. We'll get to it. Later, Natalie, Caleb, Doug, Amelia, and the lawyers and the rest of America tune into the interview. Shannon paints a damning portrait. She started working there at 19, and Caleb, her employer, is 35. Shannon makes some light accusations of animal abuse, and then she plays a montage of the kids being miserable. And finally, she plays a video that we've seen before. It's the rant that Natalie went on after running into her old classmate at Target. All of that, we assumed, was in Natalie's head. But no, she said all of that out loud, and Clementine secretly filmed the whole thing with her phone. Looking back, the book presents it like her snapping at Doug as like the first time that she vocalizes her awful inner thoughts, and that leads to her saying all of this out loud the next day or two. But I think actually Natalie was saying a lot of that stuff out loud this whole time. Like immediately after her rant, she asks the kids to say what they got at Target, and they immediately turn on. They don't react or act scared, so maybe they've seen that side of her before. And then back in college when she and Rena fought, Rena said something about like the nasty little things that Natalie says under her breath. And we didn't see Natalie do that, but we did see her think mean thoughts. I think she's been vocalizing some of them this whole time. But back to the interview. Shannon drops the bomb about the assault. She doesn't come right out and say it, but she heavily implies that Natalie sexually assaulted her. Natalie is fucked. She is turbo fucked, and everyone knows it. I went back and read that section just to be 100% sure that Natalie didn't sexually assault Shannon. Even though Natalie is unreliable, I don't think she did. Because if she had, wouldn't Shannon just say it instead of implying it? Natalie thinks, if only my husband had raped our producer. Which is awful, but kind of true. Because if Caleb had raped her, look at the way that rape allegations get dissected and discredited in the media. The counter-narrative writes itself. Shannon lied because she was jealous that Caleb didn't leave his wife for her. Sure, Natalie's complicit in it, but she's easier to forgive because she too is a victim of infidelity. We're so deep in Natalie's head that it's hard to really piece together Shannon's motives here. I don't think she's trying to ruin Natalie's life specifically. I think she was just so horrified by what she saw at Doug's rally that she had to do something to stop him. And if she brought Natalie down enough, she could tank Doug's presidential bid. And it absolutely works. Natalie's life implodes. There is nowhere she can go to outrun the hate she's been getting. She finds a bottle of Mommy's Little Helper pills that Amelia gave her years ago. She takes a generous portion, and she's not trying to die, she's just trying to get to outer space. Caleb asks if she hates having sex because she's a lesbian, and she's like, no, you never want to have sex. But she doesn't deny it. Maybe the lesbian door is open. They have a fight where Natalie drops the mask and tells him how she really feels. Just mean thought after mean thought. And then he hits her. Doug wanted Caleb to divorce her, but now he wants Natalie dead. And Natalie thinks, how boring. How deeply and utterly unfair. I did everything I was supposed to. I had the children and married the man and created a universe for all of us to live in. And what was I going to get for it? She says Caleb doesn't want that. He just wants what he's always wanted, to be left alone. And she tells him to let her fix it. And how will that happen? Perhaps the answer is in the woods. Let's check back in on olden times. Okay. So, Natalie's left the farm. She's wandering around the woods. Maybe she'll find a doctor for Maeve. Maybe she'll just find herself. She vaguely regrets all the time she didn't spend with her kids. She can barely remember their faces except for Clementine's. She doesn't know their real personalities. She didn't want to get to know them, but she was supposed to. She stumbles upon a little cabin. There's a truck parked out front, and the word manosphere is carved above the door frame. Is it a hallucination? She goes through the doorway, and there's a picture on the wall of her, Caleb, Clementine, Samuel, and baby Stetson. There's a hot plate, mini fridge, electricity, and TV. When the fuck are we? And one of the neighbors is sitting outside, peeling produce stickers off vegetables and putting them into a plastic milk crate. Those are the veggies that old Caleb farms. The neighbor sees her and says, Mama, she runs. Did you figure it out yet? Because at this point I was like, damn, this is the most elaborate, fucked up prank I've ever seen in my life. She runs out of the cabin and ends up back at the house. Old Caleb is waiting for her, but he's not mad. Maeve's fever is broken. He was worried Natalie might have taken her, and she isn't vaccinated. And then a car rolls up. It's a red Subaru, a practical yet lesbianic vehicle. And a woman steps out who looks exactly like Natalie, but with short hair. It's Clementine. Adult Clementine. We're in part 3, the future now. Caleb and Natalie haven't seen her in a long, long time. She's pretty obviously repulsed by how they live, and Natalie's just smiling like a goddamn lunatic. Like part 1, there are these sections that seem to be like an imagined interview with someone. So at some point, Natalie's homesteading went to an intense place, and then she deleted her Instagram. Doug's presidential campaign went right down the toilet. We don't really know when, but at some point, Natalie had a psychotic break. She believes if she does a good enough job living in pioneer times, then all the charges against her will be dropped, and her haters will forgive her. The tonics they've been giving her have pills in them. Samuel, her son, helps procure them. Stetson's also around. It was his house that Natalie wandered into. Doug settled Shannon's lawsuit out of court and paid the media to stop covering her story. He bribed local law enforcement to drop the case, and then Natalie gutted all of the modernity out of Yesteryear Ranch. She even dumped their normal clothes and replaced them with pioneer reenactor clothes and then just ripped off the tags. They didn't have tags in olden days. Mary pokes her head out, and in a moment of lucidity, Natalie sees that she's malnourished, short for her age, and has never known a dentist's loving touch. Mary's confused. She doesn't know what a car is, but Caleb said she saw it once when she was very young. Remember how Natalie was pregnant with a baby girl who she wanted to name Mary? Well, she had Mary 18 years ago. That's when we are. 18 years after the events of part 1. When Clementine turned 16, Caleb and Natalie stole the car. Clementine was like, I'm out, and she fled to the woods with the other kids. Eventually, they made it to Natalie's mom's house. We don't get a ton of resolution on the kids. The boys are around, obviously we've seen them. Jessa and Junebug are alive, but they're not doing well, no elaboration. All of them live nearby. We don't know why Clementine didn't take Mary either, maybe she was just too young. Caleb and Natalie told Mary that the kids were no longer with them. And gradually, Natalie went fully crazy, and they had more kids. Natalie says she had to leave because she's pregnant, only she's not. She's 50 years old. 50, so quick math, she had 4-year-old Maeve at 46? Haha! No, Maeve is 10. She was born not breathing, and they didn't know what to do until 8-year-old Mary resuscitated her. She only looks 4 because that left her with some kind of developmental disorder, and she's also super malnourished. There's so much about this reveal, and all of it's horrifying, but my tummy hurt reading this. Like, I was so mad. Partially because this isn't even a home birth, this is a free birth, which is when you give birth with no medical supervision or care. Sometimes even no prenatal care. And doing that comes with huge risks for mom and baby. There's an excellent, horrifying article published in The Guardian last year, and I'll put a link to it in the description if you're curious. Caleb wasn't farming. He would go out, wander over to his son's cabin, watch football, and then come back with grocery store meat and vegetables. When Natalie stumbled into the cabin, the boys called Clementine because they saw how bad Natalie was doing. Clementine didn't know that the boys were keeping them alive. And Mary, sweet Mary, who had a crush on these men, realizes that they were her full brothers. Caleb claims he did this to keep Natalie alive, but really it's because it let him become king of the Fail sons he always dreamed of being. Clementine talks to Natalie alone. She's not as angry or bitter as you might think she would be. She says, "Do you know, Mother, what the hardest part of leaving you was?" I say nothing. It wasn't walking through the woods with the kids or waiting for a car to stop. It wasn't moving in with Grandma, all 5 of us in a single bedroom. It was months after I'd gotten to the other side when I realized that every single thing you told me about the world was a lie. Her hands are shaking. She's staring at her own fingers as she says, "Everything was so much better than I thought it would be. The people were nicer. The cities were cleaner. I was right. It was better living with Grandma and Abigail than it was with you. And when they took us to see the ocean," she stops, her breath suddenly shaky. She inhales deeply, then exhales. Speaks again. "I just didn't get it. I didn't get why my family never wanted to be a part of it." Her eyes meet mine. "Why did you never want to be a part of it?" No answer. Then it's time for Clementine to go. She says she has a warrant to take the kids, which, sure, maybe. We never see it. Natalie's not invited. And she's like, "You can't leave me here with him." And Clementine's like, "You built this place. You can leave whenever you want." Natalie says goodbye to the kids. She tells Maeve, and only Maeve, that she loves her. And she's sad that Maeve was the only child she loved easily. Clementine and Mary are silent. I think we can all guess why. Natalie realizes that none of the kids will be normal, and Mary will suffer the most. After they drive away, Natalie tells Caleb that he was right. They should have gotten divorced a long time ago. They tell each other they hate each other with the same kind of stunned realization you might tell somebody that you've fallen in love with them. But then they leave the ranch hand in hand. And then we get the epilogue. 5 years after part 3, Natalie's preparing for an interview, a real one, back at the ranch. She's shackled, presumably because you can leave prison if you have a cool enough place to go. At Natalie's request, she'll be interviewed by Rena Magliotti, her former college roommate, who's now an anchorwoman in Chicago. Natalie's doing this because her lawyers told her that it would make her more sympathetic. Is that true? I don't know. Natalie is serving a 30-year sentence for 4 counts of aggravated child abuse, her pioneer children, and other charges. But we don't get an interview, because the rest of the epilogue is Rena reading the prologue of Mary's upcoming memoir, The Book of Mary. Mary now lives in Santa Monica with Clementine, Maeve, Noah, and Abel. When Mary was rescued, she didn't know how to write anything but her family members' names, so she recorded her story instead. She got to know her other siblings, her grandmother, her aunt, and cousins. She's taking classes at the community center. She has a job and goes to a normal church. She says she misses her mom, and she's sad that her mom missed out on so much the world had to offer. And we learn that when Clementine drove her away from Yesteryear, that was the first time in her life that she smiled. The end. I loved this. Oh my God, I loved this. The ending and the reveal was such a gut punch. Like, honestly, I knew something was up, but I didn't guess it would be that. Like, oh, Caro, you exquisite bitch. You got me. So I love a puzzle box. And if you don't know what that is, it's like there's this key central mystery that underlies the entire story, and it changes the context of everything once you solve that mystery. Think like Gideon the Ninth or Lost or like the first season of Westworld. And I love it because suddenly you're thinking about these earlier lines and events and they totally hit different. I especially love it when I don't expect it because I never even thought to put my detective hat on. There were so many good hints and I kept noticing them when I wrote this script. Some of them it would be easy to just miss, right? For most of the book, I kept waiting for Natalie's redemption. Even as she kept digging herself into a deeper and deeper hole, I hoped she'd find her way out. Maybe 1855 would humble her. Maybe she'd learn the true meaning of motherhood. So it was even worse when it didn't happen. But it made sense. Like, she had so many opportunities to address the fact that her personality and her upbringing were incompatible. And yet she tries and tries and tries to make it work, and it fails. It was always going to fail for her. And she never even considers that there could be other options. She uses other people as metrics for why those choices wouldn't work. Like, if I were Rena, I'd be miserable. Oh, okay, sure. What you're experiencing is joy. Got it. I really enjoyed Natalie as a character. I found her very sympathetic despite being unlikable. There are several hints throughout the first part that who she is doesn't match with who she says she is. Like, she says something like, I rarely paid attention to the differences between the children. Both the girls and boys spoke similarly, laughed similarly. And it sounds pleasant enough on the surface, but like, what do you mean you don't pay attention to their differences? That's what makes them unique. Her fear of motherhood, I thought, was really valid. Early in the book, Natalie talks about being terrified right before Clementine's birth, how she was like so certain that she wasn't ready to be a mother, and how she realized that Natalie would die and be replaced with Mama. And that made sense because I realized we never learned Natalie's mom's name. She's always Mama. She's only Mom. What would have happened if the women in her life had told her, like, babe, you don't have to do this? If after she gave birth to Clementine, her mom had said, hey, babe, like, let's get you to talk to someone instead of like, go for a jog, run it out. She doesn't have anybody who can really support her, even guide her to the right support. There's a classic saying, like, it takes a village to raise a child. And the concept of the village comes up a lot in online spaces. Natalie has no village. She is terminally friendless. She doesn't even really have allies. Maybe if she had, she would have been able to weather Shannon's bombshell interview. Like, low-key, I think this book is about female loneliness. Like, Natalie doesn't have real connection or community with anyone. Clementine asks her in the end why she never wanted to be part of the world, but honestly, why would Natalie want to? She's going to be lonely and miserable in both worlds, but in the pioneer world, she at least has control. Kind of. She convinced herself she did. I thought Natalie was tragic. There's a lot of what-ifs to me about Natalie. I think if Natalie and Caleb were Nathan and Kayla, I think things would have been a lot different. Or if she was a working mom and Caleb had been a stay-at-home dad, maybe their partnership would have worked. Or like, what if she got help for her issues? There's no canon answer to what's wrong wrong with her. Maybe postpartum depression or psychosis, or both. But I'm not convinced that that's where her issues started. I almost wondered if she was autistic. There's plenty of social and emotional stuff she just doesn't understand. Like, for example, she doesn't even get how to smile right, which would make sense if you really struggle with facial expressions. And she has this very rigid black and white way of thinking. Or maybe she's just a sociopath. I kind of like that we never know. Natalie's unreliable narration opened the door for a lot of questions. Did she sexually assault Shannon? Is she a lesbian or maybe bisexual? I know some people think that. I don't. I don't think she actually sexually assaulted Shannon. I think Shannon just lied a little bit because she knew that Natalie's followers would reject her the most if she were gay. There's this line when Natalie runs into her high school classmate where she imagines that she's gonna like go home and watch lesbian porn next to her husband. And I know some people view that as like proof that she's a lesbian because like that's what she's like thinking about or fantasizing about. I think it's more of just that like Natalie feels like sex is power, and so she kind of feels like in that moment she has like dominated her high school friend, and so it's like her friend is going to go home and watch this lesbian porn because she's sort of imagining Natalie dominating her. That's my take. I don't think it means that she's actually attracted to women. Honestly, I think she's barely attracted to men. I don't know that she's attracted to anyone, really. That being said, I don't think everything worked for me. This book is labeled as a satire. I know it is an exaggeration, but I still found there to be like some issues with plausibility. She had millions of followers before her fall from grace, and it's like nobody wanted to drive to their property in 1855 times in gawk. Or like she gets into Harvard and her resume is basically smart girl who's captain of the track team. Is that enough? I doubt it. It's like do they have affirmative action but just for people from Idaho? Gotta compete with BYU. And Caleb doesn't seem smart enough to get into Harvard even as a Nepo admission. I could see both of them going to another top university, but Harvard felt like a stretch. But all of that wasn't enough to take me out of it. I think because psychologically Natalie felt so real. I struggled the most with Natalie's relationship with God and religion. I didn't feel like she had an actual relationship with God or any kind of real religious practice. She never even goes to church. It seemed like for her, Christianity was just a rigid set of rules she was born into following. And because of that, it didn't really feel like the book had anything substantial to say about Christianity or even evangelicalism or the nature of being an influencer even. Like there were some parts of the book where I feel like these questions were raised, but they were never really answered. So like I went to art school and it was like we would do these like critiques and people would talk about their work and they'd talk about like, oh, what does it mean for whatever? What does it mean for this? And you know, like what does it mean that the influencers are fake? Like it's so cool to ask the question, right? Like it's fun to ask the question, but like you do have to answer it. Even a bad answer or even an answer that people disagree with, I mean, that's where like the conversation starts from. You're not throwing out like a conversation topic. Like you do actually have to take a perspective. And I just didn't really feel like it had a whole lot to say about like the nature of influencers or Christianity. I'm not 100% sure it was trying to, but I'm also not 100% sure it wasn't trying to. Oh, sometimes people who claim to be good people are actually bad people. Some Christians are hypocritical. Like, wow, you're telling me this now for the first time. But all that to say, I loved it. I love this book, 10 out of 10. Did you read Yesteryear? What did you think? Let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video if you liked the video and subscribe if you want to be here for the next one. I know I said last video that the next one would be lighthearted. Haha, I lied on accident. But I read this book and I just had to talk about it. You're going to get the lighthearted one, I promise. It's going to be wonderful. Okay, bye.